I didn't even want to go to that wedding, but there I was, barefoot on the dance floor, in a dress I borrowed, in the arms of a stranger who made the whole room disappear. I didn't know his name, but I had no idea. I was dancing with a billionaire. Hey everyone, I'm just a regular girl who got caught up in something way bigger than I ever imagined. If you believe in fate, love, and those moments that change your life forever, then stay right here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you've ever felt swept away by a stranger. I'm not one of those girls who believes every wedding is a fairy tale waiting to happen. Honestly, I'd had enough of love stories, at least the kind that end with me crying into my pillow. I was still trying to piece myself together after a breakup that left more cracks than I'd like to admit. So, when the wedding invitation came in the mail, glittery, pink, and loud, I rolled my eyes and tossed it onto the kitchen table. My cousin Bianca was getting married, and apparently it was going to be the event of the year. But I wasn't in the mood to wear a fake smile or squeeze into a tight dress just to pretend like I was okay. My apartment was quiet and small, the kind of space that makes you feel safe, but also a little lonely. I worked long hours as a medical assistant at a small clinic downtown. Nothing glamorous, but I loved helping people, and the work gave me a reason to get out of bed every morning. My days were routine: wake up, work, eat something cheap, scroll through dating apps I never opened, and fall asleep to the sound of city traffic outside my window. Life wasn't bad, just stuck. When I told my mom I wasn't planning to go to the wedding, she gave me that tone over the phone, the one that sounds sweet but is really a warning. Camille, you're one of the only family members from our side. You have to go. Just show your face, dance a little, make Bianca happy. She made it sound like I'd be doing community service. I told her I had nothing to wear and no date. She told me I was beautiful and that she'd help me borrow a dress from my cousin Kiana, who has more dresses than sense. Classic mom response. I sat on my bed for a while after that call, staring at the chipped polish on my toes, thinking about how love had been more of a lesson than a blessing lately. The thought of watching two people vow forever love while I was still nursing a heart that hadn't fully healed didn't sound like a fun time. But guilt is a strong motivator, and so is the sound of your mother sighing dramatically in your ear. So I said yes. I didn't go shopping. I didn't get my hair done. I didn't even really prepare. I just picked up the lavender dress Kiana left for me in a garment bag, hoped it fit, and set a reminder on my phone for the wedding date. I told myself I'd go, smile once or twice, and leave before dessert. Just enough to say I came, nothing more. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have possibly imagined, was that this random wedding, this one night I didn't even want to attend, would change everything. Not just the way I saw love, but the way I saw myself. I wore a borrowed dress and showed up late. The venue was fancy and filled with people I didn't know. I stuck to the corner, sipping punch and pretending to scroll my phone. The bride danced with her husband, and love filled the air. But I still felt alone. The dress fit better than I expected, a little snug in the hips, but nothing a deep breath couldn't handle. It was soft lavender, off the shoulder, with a flowing skirt that made me feel just the tiniest bit elegant. My hair, twisted into a simple bun I threw together at the last minute. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just trying to survive the evening. I took a rideshare to the venue, practicing my smile in the back seat like it was armor. I arrived late, on purpose, honestly. I figured the ceremony would be done by then, and I could blend into the reception crowd without anyone making a fuss about me being solo. The venue was beautiful, though. An old countryside estate turned wedding hall, lit up with fairy lights and soft jazz music floating through the open windows. People laughed, clinked glasses, and floated from table to table in outfits that probably cost more than my rent. I walked in, clutching my small purse like a lifeline, and gave a tight smile to the nearest stranger who barely noticed me. Inside, the place looked like a dream. White roses on every table, a giant chandelier twinkling like something out of a movie. And there in the middle of the room, on a wide wooden dance floor, Bianca twirled in her gown like a princess. She looked radiant, like she was glowing from inside. Her new husband looked at her like she was his whole universe. I stood there watching them, frozen for a second, surprised by how much that kind of love still made my chest ache. I was happy for her, truly, but I also felt like an outsider in someone else's fairy tale. I drifted toward the refreshment table and grabbed a plastic cup of red punch. Too sweet. I sipped anyway and pretended to check messages on my phone, even though there were none. I didn't know anyone around me. My cousins were all seated or off dancing with their partners. The rest of the room was full of strangers laughing in groups, sharing inside jokes I wasn't part of. I started calculating how long I needed to stay before it would be socially acceptable to leave. An hour? Maybe two. I didn't want to look rude, but I didn't want a fake smile any longer than I had to. I stayed in my corner, eyes bouncing between the dance floor and the exit. But something strange happened as I stood there, something I didn't expect. For a brief moment, I stopped feeling invisible. I could feel eyes on me, warm and focused, like someone had just entered the room and noticed me. It was subtle, but it made my heart tick a little faster. I didn't know it yet, but the energy in the room was shifting, and the night was just getting started. A tall man with kind eyes asked me to dance. I almost said no, but something made me say yes. He was charming, quiet, but funny. We danced and talked like we knew each other for years. He never told me his name, just smiled and asked questions about me. I was mid-sip of my third overly sweet cup of punch when I heard a voice beside me. "Not a fan of weddings?" it asked, low and smooth, like jazz on vinyl. I turned, startled, maybe even slightly annoyed because I wasn't in the mood. But the man standing there wasn't what I expected. He was tall, definitely over 6 feet, with deep brown hair and eyes that seemed to really see me. Not in a creepy way, just intentional, like I wasn't background noise to him. I gave a half shrug and smiled politely. "They're fine, just better when you know more people." He chuckled and nodded toward the dance floor. "I don't know anyone either. Thought I'd find the other wallflower and see if she'd like to dance." I hesitated. I mean, I hadn't danced with a stranger since college, and back then it was mostly tipsy moves at house parties. But there was something calming about him. He didn't look like he was trying to hit on me. He wasn't overly smooth or loud. He was dressed simply. A well-fitted navy suit, no tie, shirt collar slightly open like he wanted to breathe. He seemed real. So, after a brief pause, I nodded. "Sure," I said, surprised at my own voice. He held out his hand. It was warm and steady. As we stepped onto the dance floor, I felt awkward for the first few seconds, conscious of the way my shoes pinched and how I probably looked too serious. But then the music shifted to something soft and slow, and his hand gently found the small of my back. He didn't lead with force. He guided, almost like he was asking permission with each step. It was nice. "So," he said as we moved, "tell me something you're passionate about." I blinked. Most people start with, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do?" But not him. I laughed lightly. "That's a big question for a first dance." He smiled. "I don't like wasting time with small talk. Life's short." So I told him. I talked about my job at the clinic, how I loved helping people, how it made me feel useful in a world that often forgets people like us. He listened, not the fake kind of listening where someone waits for their turn to speak, but the real kind. His eyes stayed on me, He asked thoughtful questions. He laughed when I said I once fainted during a blood draw and became the clinic's inside joke. We danced for what felt like hours, but was probably just a few songs. I didn't even notice the people around us anymore. Just him and the rhythm between us, and the strange comfort I found in a stranger's arms. I didn't ask his name, and he didn't offer it. It should have been weird, but it wasn't. It felt right, like we both knew this moment wasn't about names. It was about something else entirely. We danced again and again. It wasn't just attraction, it felt like connection. Other women looked at us, whispering. I thought maybe he was popular or knew someone. He suddenly whispered, "Thank you for tonight," and vanished into the crowd. Something about that first dance changed everything. I'm not even sure how to describe it, but it was like the noise of the room faded the moment he touched my hand. We weren't just swaying to music anymore. It felt like we were locked into our own quiet universe, spinning gently while the rest of the world blurred. I wasn't thinking about my ex. I wasn't worried about looking good or saying the right thing. I was just there, fully, in that moment, with him. After the first song ended, I expected him to let go and disappear back into the crowd. Maybe say something polite like, "Nice meeting you," or "Enjoy the rest of your night." But he didn't. He gave me this crooked smile and said, "You up for another?" I surprised myself by saying yes without hesitation. So we danced again. And again. I lost count after the fourth song. Each one felt like it revealed a little more of who we were, not just in words, but in the way our bodies moved together. I learned that he had a subtle sense of humor, the kind that sneaks up on you. He teased me about how I tried to lead during the fast songs and called me out for singing along under my breath. I learned he liked to ask questions that made me pause, the kind that felt like he was more interested in my soul than my resume. But the strangest thing was the way people started noticing us. I caught a few stares from across the room. A woman in a red dress whispered something to another guest while glancing in our direction. I brushed it off at first, figured maybe he was someone's ex, or just really good looking. But the more it happened, the more I felt like there was something I didn't know. Still, he seemed unaffected, calm, completely focused on me. He didn't look away when others stared. He didn't rush our conversation. He just held me like he'd been waiting to do it for a long time. And then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. It happened so fast I almost didn't believe it. One moment we were slow dancing to a Stevie Wonder classic, and the next, he was leaning close to my ear. "Thank you," he said, his voice low and sincere. "For tonight, you have no idea what it meant." Then he pressed a light kiss to the back of my hand and disappeared into the crowd. No goodbye, no explanation, no name, just gone. I stood there, frozen, like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. I scanned the room, heart racing, trying to spot his dark suit, his tall frame, those eyes. But he had vanished, like he'd never been there at all. I asked a few people around me if they'd seen where he went, but no one had. One woman just shrugged and said, "Maybe he left early." Another said, "Girl, I've never seen him before in my life." It was the strangest, most beautiful, and confusing encounter I'd ever had. As the music kept playing and the crowd returned to their dancing and drinking, I stood still, feeling like I'd just lived through something I couldn't quite name. Was it magic? A dream? Or had I really just shared the most intimate night of my life with someone who didn't even tell me who he was? I walked away from that wedding not knowing what just happened, but I knew this. Something inside me had shifted. I didn't know his name, but I knew his presence had left a mark, one I couldn't shake, even if I tried. I asked around, but nobody knew who he was. Not in the guest list, not with the groom's side or the bride's. I left confused and strangely sad. For a week, I kept thinking about him. I started to wonder, did I imagine it all? The next morning, I woke up with that slow ache behind my eyes, the kind that comes after staying up too late, dancing too long, and overthinking every little thing. The wedding felt like a blur, but the one part I couldn't stop replaying was him. His voice, his laugh, the way he held my hand like it was something precious. I sat up in bed, stared at the ceiling, and whispered to myself, who was that man? I tried to be normal, tried to move on like it was just a moment, a spark between strangers, nothing more, but something about it clung to me. I couldn't let it go, so I did what any curious woman with Wi-Fi and questions would do. I went searching. First, I texted my cousin Bianca, just a casual, "Hey, beautiful wedding. Do you know the tall guy in the navy suit I danced with?" Her reply came back fast. Which one? There were like 5. I sent a brief description, hoping it would trigger something. She responded with a voice note full of laughter. Girl, I don't think he was on my guest list. Maybe someone from Kevin's side? Kevin was her new husband, so I reached out to Kevin, or rather, awkwardly messaged him on Instagram. Hi, weird question. Do you happen to know the guy I danced with at the wedding? Tall, brown hair, navy suit? He saw the message and didn't reply. Not rude, just probably confused. After all, how do you explain dancing with a ghost? I even tried the photographer. Yep, I went that far. I checked the wedding hashtag, combed through every tagged photo, zoomed in on blurry faces in the background. Nothing. It was like he never existed. Like the universe let him step into that night just for me, then snatched him back before morning. By day 5, I started questioning my own memory. Was I being dramatic? Maybe it was just the magic of the moment, the dress, the music. Maybe he was just a decent guy at a wedding who danced with a lonely girl and moved on. But then I'd remember how he looked at me, how he listened, how he said thank you for tonight, like it actually meant something. And my gut kept telling me it wasn't just me. He had felt it too. Every night I found myself staring at the ceiling, wondering where he was, wondering if he was thinking about me too, wondering if I'd ever see him again, or if he was just a beautiful question the universe would never answer. I wasn't looking for love that night, but now? I couldn't help but hope the story wasn't over, because some things feel too real to be forgotten, and I wasn't ready to let go of the possibility, not yet. A random Instagram post showed up in my feed, a wedding photo with him in the background. I tapped the profile. Turns out, he's the son of a billionaire family that owns a global hotel chain. His name? Alexander Lane, and he's engaged, according to the internet. It started like any ordinary afternoon. I was on my lunch break at the clinic, sitting in the break room with my salad and scrolling through Instagram the way we all do, half distracted, barely paying attention. I was just about to close the app when I stopped mid-scroll. My heart stuttered. There he was, in a random wedding photo posted by someone I didn't even follow, a mutual friend of a friend or something. I saw his face. It was a wide group shot of guests from another wedding entirely, but he was there, slightly off to the side, smiling in that quiet, effortless way I remembered. My hand froze above the screen, thumb hovering as if afraid to tap. But I tapped. The photo was posted by a woman named Danielle. Her profile was public, so I scrolled, carefully, curiously. He appeared again, this time in a video clip. Same warm smile, same quiet presence. I turned the volume up. Someone called him by name, Alex. I felt like I had just cracked open a door I wasn't supposed to open. So I kept digging. It didn't take long. Once I had a name, Alexander Lane, the internet did the rest. A few Google searches later, I was staring at headline after headline. Alexander Lane named VP of Lane International. Lane family expands real estate empire. Billionaire heir spotted at Monaco Gala. My jaw dropped. Not just because of who he was, but because it made everything make sense. His calm confidence, the way people stared at us on the dance floor, the whispers I'd tried to ignore. He wasn't just some charming wedding guest. He was the Alexander Lane, son of Thomas Lane. The Lane family, the people behind some of the most luxurious hotels around the world. I was sitting there with my off-brand salad and my thrifted purse, reading about a man who literally grew up in five-star penthouses. And then came the kicker. I clicked on one of the newer articles, and there it was, a red carpet photo of Alexander with a tall, elegant woman on his arm. The caption read, "Heir to Lane Empire seen with rumored fiancé at charity gala." Fiancé. I stared at the screen, my stomach flipping over itself. My chest tightened in confusion, hurt, and something that felt dangerously close to betrayal. Was this why he didn't tell me his name? Was I just a moment of fun before he returned to his real life? His rich, glossy, perfectly matched life? I closed my phone, feeling foolish. I should have known better. Fairy tales aren't meant for girls like me, not girls with student loans and secondhand shoes. For a second, I felt small, invisible all over again. But even as that sting settled into my chest, a part of me couldn't shake the look he gave me, the way he danced with me, the softness in his voice when he whispered, "Thank you." Something about it didn't feel fake, and I wasn't ready to believe it had all been a lie. 1 week later, I get a message from a private account. "I can't stop thinking about you." It's him. He says he's not engaged. It's a family setup. He tells me he had to leave suddenly, but regrets not saying goodbye. A week passed. I told myself I was over it, that it was just a fluke, a fleeting moment at a fancy wedding with a man I should have never danced with in the first place. But I wasn't over it, not even close. Every time I closed my eyes, I could still feel his hand on my back, still hear his voice in my ear. And then there was the internet, his photos, the engagement rumors, the whole billionaire life I could never be part of. I kept telling myself it was done, that I'd imagined it all. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I was sad because it ended or because I never got to ask him why. Then, just when I'd started to force myself to move on, something happened. It was late, almost midnight. I was in bed scrolling like always when a message popped up in my DMS. The account was private, no profile picture, no bio. Just a single message. "I can't stop thinking about you." At first, I thought it was spam or some kind of joke. I almost deleted it without opening, but something told me to wait. I clicked the message, and as I scrolled down, I saw another one. "It's me, from the wedding." My heart stopped. I blinked, rereading it 3 times before I even dared to reply. I typed slowly, cautiously. "Alex?" he replied almost instantly. "Yes, I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. Things got complicated that night. I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you." I stared at the screen, emotions hitting me like waves. Relief, confusion, a little bit of anger. I wanted answers, and I didn't hold back. "Are you engaged?" His next message came quickly. It's a long story. My parents have been trying to push me into this arranged relationship for business reasons. That woman you saw, Eloise, is the daughter of one of their business partners. It's never been real. We go to events for appearances, but there's nothing between us. I didn't know what to think. Part of me wanted to believe him. The other part, the one that had been hurt before, was already building a wall. "Why didn't you just tell me who you were?" I asked. There was a pause. Then he wrote, "Because I liked not being Alexander Lane. With you, I wasn't the billionaire. I was just a guy who got lucky enough to dance with a woman who made the whole room disappear. I didn't want to break the moment. I didn't respond right away. My heart was racing, my thoughts spinning. But one thing was clear: he hadn't forgotten me. And no matter how different our worlds might be, something between us had been real. And now he was reaching back. I meet him again, this time in daylight, at a coffee shop. He's nervous, says he hides his identity because people treat him differently. He says I made him feel human, normal, real. I have to choose. Do I trust him or walk away from the fantasy? We agreed to meet at a small cafe on the quieter side of town. My choice, not his. I didn't want fancy. I didn't want suits or security or luxury cars parked out front. I wanted to see if the man I danced with that night was real in the daylight, with no music, no champagne, and no magic lights. Just me, him, and the truth. I got there early, heart pounding, like I was walking into a final exam. I wore jeans, a plain sweater, and lip balm. Nothing glamorous. I didn't want to dress for the version of him I saw on the internet. I wanted to show up as me, the same girl he danced with barefoot on that wedding floor. When he walked in, he looked different, but still familiar. Dressed down in a hoodie and jeans, no bodyguards, no polished image, just Alex. His hair was slightly messy, and he looked a little tired, like he hadn't been sleeping well. When his eyes met mine, he smiled, nervously. I was worried you wouldn't come, he said as he sat across from me. I almost didn't, I replied honestly. We ordered coffee, and for a moment it was quiet. No flirty small talk, no easy jokes, just two people trying to figure out if what they felt in one night could survive reality. He spoke first. I didn't mean to disappear. The moment I left that night, I regretted it. But my phone blew up with calls from my father's assistant about a press emergency, and I had to leave immediately. I told myself I'd find you after, but then I saw your face online, and I panicked. I listened, trying not to let my feelings write the story before he finished it. I've spent my whole life being introduced as someone's son, someone's successor. People don't talk to me. They talk to the idea of me. But that night, you didn't know who I was, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't pretending or performing. I was just a guy dancing with a woman who made me feel seen. I didn't know what to say. My guard was still halfway up. But as I looked at him, really looked at him, I saw sincerity. He wasn't just trying to charm me. He was trying to be honest, vulnerable even. I can't promise this will be easy, he said. I can't promise there won't be complications. But I haven't stopped thinking about you, and I don't want to. I sat there, quiet, letting it all settle. Part of me wanted to run, to protect myself. But the other part, the part that remembered the softness of his voice, the way his eyes met mine like I mattered, leaned in. I'm not a fairy tale girl, I whispered. I don't need a fairy tale, he replied. I just need you. And in that moment, I had to decide if I was willing to step into something uncertain, something maybe real. I didn't expect to fall for someone in one dance. I didn't expect that someone to be hiding a whole empire behind his smile. But life is weird like that. If you believe in unexpected love and real connection, hit that like button and tell me, would you have said yes to him?